the system, the software will allow you to log in with your user account. And your user account, you can use your email address or your first and last name as your user ID. Okay? So again, remember to use your user name, email address as your user ID. Okay? There are two ways you can access this application. For the ones who are using the web only, mostly the requesters and approvers, you'll probably use the web application rather than the full GUI interface here that I'm showing today to access the application and log in and create documents in the system. But the interface is similar, but what I'll do is I'll provide you with documentation and another video that shows the web version to this module. Okay? Now, for the very first time when you're logging into the application, your password will be your last name in all lowercase. So if you can make a note of it. Now, Athena, did everyone receive any type of documentation with the quick user guide?
Pardon?
The quick user guide?
He wanted to know if we had received it.
No, I didn't send a quick user guide.
But you did receive it from us?
I don't. Did you, Sandra? We don't know that we received a quick user guide.
Okay, I'm going to make a note to send it out just to make sure that we did. If we did, we'll send another copy out to you, okay?
Yeah, please, and then I'll send it to everyone.
Okay. Okay. Now, again, for the staff that's attending today, your username will be your first or last name, first and last name, or your email address. And then your password will be your last name in all lowercase. Now, the system will not allow you to log in with that information. It will only allow you to change your password. So the very first time, what you'll do is you'll use the reset password, and you'll enter the old password as your last name, and then you select a new password. The new password must be at least 6 characters long, and must contain it must be an alphanumeric, so at least a letter with it in addition to a word or character. Okay. So that's the very first thing you want to do. Be able to go ahead, once you get the link to the URL, is to be able to log in and change the password. And for the approvers, it's very important that you do that initially, because you want to make sure that you get that password secured. Okay. Now, to access the application, when we provide you the link, all you have to do is from a browser, you will open up the browser, and it will it will give you a login page for the workflow modules. The application is called Workflow Modules. And the web application, when it comes up, you'll be able to enter a username and a password, and then there'll also be the change password dialog box for you to be able to change your password. Okay?
So that's what your screen will look like as opposed to mine.
Well, I
can log back in. Did you log out?
Yes, it looks like I did log out. So can you log back in for me?
What?
Now, is the GoToMeeting panel on your screen in the way, or do we need to minimize it so you can see the full screen?
I think we want to minimize it.
Okay, so for everyone who's connecting to the GoToMeeting, and you have that GoToMeeting panel on the right-hand side, there should be at the very top of the GoToMeeting panel, there should be an arrow that's pointing to each other, left and right arrow pointing to each other. If you click on that, that will hide the GoToMeeting panel so you can see the entire screen. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how to create a request and submit it for approval. And for people who are, for staff that are needing to be able to go in here and create a request and submit it for approval, then what will happen is you'll go ahead and enter your username.
We're using Sandra today. Sandra, you want to type in your password? Hold on.
And we'll go ahead and log in as Sandra and try to demonstrate how to create a request and submit it for approval. And it's very important for the team today who's creating requests to ask the questions that you feel that's important to you, because what's happening is you're going to now use this system going forward. Is it this week or June 1st? What's the go live date, Tina? That they need to start using?
July 1st.
July. Okay. So July, going forward, this is a system that you need to log in and start creating requests. Okay. Now the software will have a menu option, and the menu option on top, the one that you're going to be concerned about is the one that says requisition purchase order. So that's what you look for when you're looking at the menu at the very top. It's going to have requisition purchase order. Then you'll have.
Rick,
yes.
Rick, I said for us, we will basically just use purchase order. I mean, you know, we won't do a requisition and a purchase order, and we'll do.
Okay, so just refer to it as purchase order.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So for everyone there, you're going to log into the system and create a purchase order. But the one thing to note is that purchase order needs to be approved before you can actually use it or to go out to a vendor. Now, do the purchase orders are issued to the vendor by accountant, or is it by the person who created the request, the purchase order?
It's usually by the person who creates the request.
Okay. So one thing to note is that based on your policies, you don't want to, even though you're coming in here and creating a purchase order, you have to get it approved first, and approval will come via an email to you to say that it's finally approved. So you'll have to wait for that final approval message before you can actually issue the purchase order to the vendor. Okay? If you try to bring the, go ahead.
Rick, I just want to say, so for us, it means that we may have to plan a little bit. Not that it's going to be a long time, but like do it before instead of after, the thing.
So as staff from, are they normally accustomed to purchasing first before they get approval?
Sometimes, I'm sorry, sometimes that's been the way it is, right?
Okay. Well, going forward, we want to what we're trying to do here, and this is for everyone, all staff. What we're trying to do here is to get things pre-approved before you issue a purchase order to the vendor, and that's again in line with your policies. And mostly when auditors audit you, they want to make sure that before you make a purchase to a vendor, it was pre-approved by your managers. Okay. So the goal of this software is to try to enforce that and allow you to put in your request beforehand so you can get an approved signature before you issue it to the vendor. Okay? So more than likely, when you log into the application, again, you're going to use the requisition purchase order, and then you'll have a My Documents. The My Documents will be the place where you'll go to most of the time. And this basically houses all of your documents, all of your purchase orders that you've created in the system. So one of the here is that you can always go back into the My Document list and find things that you've done in the past. It's similar to your, if you're familiar with Microsoft Windows, whenever you create a Word document or Excel document, normally by default, it will bring up your My Documents on your drive. You may have some My Documents normally when you store your documents in Windows. Well, similar in this application. everything that you do is found in My Documents. So when you create a request, if you've been using the system for a year, all of the documents, all of the purchase orders that you've created will show up in My Documents. So it's kind of like a file cabinet storing all of your documents. You will only see your documents. You will not be able to see other staff members. Okay. Now, when you create a purchase order, anything that you create and you did not submit it for approval, you will be able to edit the document, add, edit, or delete the document, or even void it. Okay. Once you submit it for approval, the edit functionality is taken away from you. You can view it, but you cannot edit the document. So just remember that when you create a purchase order and you submit it for approval, the system will go ahead and allow you to see it, but not allow you to make any changes to it. Now, it allows you to see it because maybe you want to check and see where it is in the process. So you may create a request today or a purchase order today for purchasing a new computer, a new laptop, or new desk, or chair, whatever, office supplies, and then you put it in and you submit it to your management for approval. Well, you'll know exactly where it is in the process. If the manager approved it or if it's still sitting at the manager desk, you'll be able to see it at any given time, because the way that the software works is that it has a status, document status. And this document status tells you where it is in the process. Okay? So you always have visibility, even though you're not walking to someone's desk and asking them to sign it. You have the ability to see where it is and know whether or not it's been approved or not. Okay? All documents that are created in the system, go through an approval process. And before it goes through an approval process, the very first status it gets, it's a 0 status, and that's called requester documents. So when you create a document, create a purchase order, and you save it, you do not submit it for approval, it gets a status of 0. It hasn't gone anywhere. And then once you submit it for approval, then it's going to go on to the approval process, like level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, whatever process you have for your department. It's going to go through those multi-level approval process. Okay? So just remember, everything is organized by status. So it starts off at 0. It goes through different levels of approval. And once it's finally approved and transferred over to your accounting system to pay the vendor for those services, it will have a new status called status 14, which is document transfer to a biller. A biller is your accounting system. Because this software is integrated with your accounting system, it to get budget information, to get chart of accounts, to get vendor information, all that, it's linked directly to your accounting system. So whatever you enter here eventually ends up in your accounting system as an accounts payable invoice to the vendor. Okay? Now, if you're ordering supplies from a vendor, or maybe a service, maybe you hired someone to go and repair AC unit, and they never got paid for that invoice or purchase order that you issued, you have the ability also to check payments. So there's a payment option at the very bottom of the My Documents. On My Documents, there's a payment, and you can always go and check to see if a vendor calls you up directly. You may want to be able to go in here without having to call a accounts payable and find out about the invoice. You can check and see if the purchase order you issued, an invoice was applied to it. If a payment was applied to it, it will give you the check information and everything like that. Now, Athena, is that something you want them to do? I see it's turned off.
That's fine. That's great for them to be able to see if something was paid.
Okay, so I need to make sure that we turn that on for staff. So I'm going to make a note of here.
Is that why it's gray? It hasn't been turned on?
That's oh wait, maybe. Okay, no. I think I did not select the document. That's why it was gray.
Cool.
So when I select the document, now we didn't transfer anything to MIP yet for payment, but once you click on the payment option, for anyone who created a purchase order in the system and a vendor calls them directly or they wanted to check on payment against that purchase order, you can come in here without having to contact your AP person. You can come in here and see if the invoice was entered into the accounting system, and if there's a check against that invoice, you'll also see the check as well. Okay? So that's kind of that empowers you to kind of see that information. But again, it only will give you visibility on the documents, purchase orders that you create in the system. Okay? Whenever you create a document, there's a new button for you to create a new document. Okay? So look out for the new. At the very bottom, you have the new, edit, view, and these are the buttons that you'll use mostly. The new is to create a new purchase order. Edit is to edit an existing purchase order. So you may come in here and create a new purchase order for, let's say, Quill or for Staples or whatever, and you've added a few items on there today. Let's say we added 5 items, but you left for the day, so you saved the document. You did not submit it for approval. When you save it, then you can always go back in there and return to that document and edit the document to add or remove items. Okay? So what I mean by that is when I click on the new and I select purchase, document type is purchase order, document prefix is PO, and I click OK, it's going to open up a new form to allow me to create a new purchase order. And the purchase order form is laid out in 2 parts. There's a document information, which is at the very top, document information. And then there are line items, like, for example, the items on that purchase order. You can have multiple line items, 10, 20, 30, 40, all depends on how much line items we're looking at. But you can have line items at the bottom which identifies what you're trying to buy. Okay? So on your very top, very first top part, you have the document information, and that is more general. So if I'm ordering something from Quill or I'm ordering something from Staples, I may just put a general description of supplies. Okay. Right? And then at the very bottom where it has item numbers, then I may have specifically what I'm buying, like a fax toner, paper, pens, and clips, and so on. I'd identify those there. Eventually, I believe, Athena, we're going to work with Athena to go ahead and, if you guys are familiar with shopping on Quill's website and getting stuff from Quill, to be able to shop from their site and bring it back so you don't have to double key the information. Okay? But for now, you have to enter that information here of what you're trying to buy and then submit it for approval. Now, by default, I told you on the document information, we just want to put in office supplies, a general description. If it's a tangible item, supplies or medical supplies, whatever it may be. If it's a service, you'll identify the type of service, maybe a hire of a consultant, maybe it's a travel expense, you're going to put in travel, whatever it may be, you can just put a general description on the document. Here I'll put in office supplies. And everything else defaults for you, like the workflow. And you don't have to worry about this unless you belong to multiple workflows. The workflow dictates who this requisition or who this purchase order will go through for approval. So if you only belong to one specific department and you're creating a request, purchase order, it's going to know who you are and know who your supervisor or managers, director, whoever you, need to approve the document, and they'll be able to send it on for approval. Okay? Now, we have the order, a required date, and that's going to be default for you. A bill to and ship to, that's also going to default for you. You will not be able to make changes to the bill to and ship to address. There's a reason justification, and this is more internal. You may need to put in some notes here of why you need this to your approver, and you can use that reason justification box to enter those specific notes. Again, mostly geared towards a reason or justification of why you're making this purchase for the approver.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the special instructions box, We can put things like if they want to pick up the check. Is that right or no?
Yeah, the special instructions you can use. Normally, the special instructions are printed on the purchase order, and it's geared towards if you give a purchase order out to a vendor, those special instructions may be specific to a vendor.
For the vendor, okay.
Right. The reason justification are more geared towards internal comments of what reason justifications or even any comments you want to make, but it stays internal. It doesn't go out to the vendor. Okay?
Okay, then on the user-defined additional information, is that where we can put like pickup check or whatever? I'm asking that because sometimes people do want to pick up checks rather than us mailing them.
Okay, I see. Well, then yes. What I can do is I can create a user-defined field called payment method, or something like that. That you can have the staff select from that list of pickup check or mail or whatever it may be. So I'll work with you in creating that user-defined field to see what you would like to capture from the user and be able to have them select from a list. Okay?
Great.
Now, if it's just for pickup check, if that's the only thing, then yeah, you could probably just put it in the special instructions. But if it's something that other than pickup check, there's some other categories that you would like to capture, then we can use a user-defined field. The user-defined field, you can have as many as you like here, so we can kind of see what other information you would like to gather. As you use the system and you get a little bit more familiar with it, and then you would like to capture more data from these forms, then we can add some additional user-defined fields if needed. Okay. So for the staff that are creating the purchase order, this is the only form that you have to get comfortable with. And over time, you're going to use it. You're going to use it very frequently. Depends on how much purchase orders you put through. So it'll become just natural once you do it a few times, because this is the only form, data entry form, that you have to get comfortable with. Whether you're trying to purchase a service or goods, you enter it all through this form. Okay. So the learning curve, if you do it one or two times, you're going to get used to it, because this is going to be something that you do constantly every week or whatnot, and you'll get familiar with it very fast. Now, at the very bottom of the screen here, you have the vendor information, or middle of the screen. You have the vendor information, and the vendor information, what it's doing is it's basically saying who is the vendor that you're purchasing this item from or service. So we can drop down the list, and we can pick from the vendor list. This vendor list pulls from your accounting system. So these are all approved vendors that are built into your accounting system. If there's any new vendor that you'd like to purchase from, Athena, would you like to speak to that policy of what's the procedure of if the vendor is not in the list?
Yes, Sandra, if the vendor's not in the list, then
what's your current process right now? If somebody needs to purchase from a vendor or new vendor that's not an approved vendor, what's the policy for that today?
Let me do it, because I have to add their W-9 information.
Yes. Accounts payable needs to set up the vendor so that she can get pertinent information like a W-9. So.
Okay, so all that have to be. So right now in your current policy, all that have to be done first before they can create a purchase order and get it approved. And okay.
Correct.
Okay. So for the group today who's entering a purchase order, now some customers. Sorry, you had a question?
Question.
Sure.
My question is to do with the drop-down box. I noticed it's ordered by number. So to do it by alpha, would it go, you type into the top little part, and then it'll make it alpha?
Yes, absolutely. When you click on the top part here, which says alpha, it will sort by alpha now. Or the very first column here is a filter column. So I can come in here in the names and start typing A, B, and it's going to automatically find those vendors based on the filter that I put in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay? And you can also use a wildcard. So if you have an office supply vendor, and you know that the name has office in it, but you can't remember the entire name, you can do a % sign and type in OFF, and it'll bring up all of the vendors with their, oops, here, office. Oh, let me remove this here. Let me go back and try it again. Okay, so %. Let me see. Delete this. Ah, not showing me again. Let me close it out and redo it.
It was coming up before when you typed %.
Yeah, let me try it again. Some key. Let me try it again here. Now, just for the people who are using the web application, some of these functionality might be slightly different in the web app versus the Windows app. So once I give you the web video, I'll try to demonstrate some of these as well too, okay? But when you drop down the list of vendors and you come in here in the name, you type in a %. I think you can use % or asterisk as a wildcard and type in OFFICE. Then any vendor with the word office in there will appear. Notice how it just filters for every vendor that has office in there. And that way you can go ahead and pick that vendor if needed. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and use Office Depot, and it automatically brings up the mail-in address, the name automatically for you. So you don't have to key that in, okay? Now, the line items are what you're trying to purchase. So item number, eventually are we going to give them a list where they can pick from, or that's still in the air?
No, as far as items, they should be able to enter just any item they want to order.
Okay, so
the Quill one, we need to know how it works with the punch list or whatever with Quill.
Okay, but right now, if you're entering items in the system, you can go ahead purchase orders in the system, and you're trying to enter item number. This item number may refer to a catalog number. So let's say, for example, we're shopping on Dell, and Dell will give you an item number for a specific computer you need to buy. Then you go ahead and enter that item number here, okay? Or if you're looking at a catalog, you got a catalog in front of you, and there are 4 or 5 items that you want to buy, then you'll enter that item number pertaining to that catalog item, okay? And let's say we go in here and put in Dell computer, whatever that may be. We have a quantity, okay? And then we have the price. So we'll come in here and put in the price of that item. And then here we talked about earlier, we talked about the expense information. And again, Athena said that you guys are familiar with your location, program, and center. Now that's going to automatically default for you based on your workflow. So whatever workflow you belong to, we already programmed the software to say, if you're part of this particular workflow, well, your location is this, your program is this, and your cost center is that. Okay?
Here's a question, Rick.
Okay, so Rick, I do ordering for several different cost centers sometimes with events. So say I'm assigned to development or HR, but I am purchasing for China Lesson Program. How does that work when it's automatically pulling up the cost centers? Does it allow us to change that?
Yeah, what we'll do, right, for you, for anyone who needs to be able to change cost center and charge to different cost centers, then we won't default this in your workflow. So this here will be blank for you to go ahead and drop down the list and pick from other cost centers.
Yeah, we would want to set it up because we really don't want people to be able to choose any cost center because we don't want people charging other folks cost centers when they shouldn't. But for certain people like Tammy or Joe that operate for multiple, maybe we can go ahead and just list some of those in your workflow.
No, Tammy's question, I think, for purposes of flow, if she's ordering something for another department, she should just pass on that information so they enter it.
Yeah.
That would be better.
Other than that, she's going to have access like
That's right. That would be better.
What I'm hoping is that if you allow me to put in a certain cost center, if I have multiple cost centers, if I type in a certain cost center, you will have it entered to attach that cost center to the program manager that it would flow to approve that. That's what makes sense to me is you attach that cost center to a program manager.
That is the way it works, Tammy, but the issue or problem is that you may be associated to only one or two cost centers. It's automatically going to pass it to the right person to approve, but there needs to be a control where one person can't charge. I go ahead and order everything I want and put it on Nikki's cost center.
That's what is happening now.
Yeah, and we want to stop that. We want to try to prevent that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Those are you choose to have multiple ones. If I put in something for Nikki would have to approve that.
No, that's the way it works automatically. But the issue is we're talking about you as the initiator.
You are the initiator. You have to be.
If you normally order for, say, Evan and Nikki, you need to be on both workflows. Is that right, Rick? Let's say if she needs to order two different departments, you need to be on both of those workflows.
Now you can also think about, you can put in a purchase order and submit it on only those items on that cost center, because if you want to keep the workflows locked down to a cost center, then it will require that you create two separate purchase orders, one with items for that cost center that's associated with that workflow and submit it onto that, and the other way, the other purchase order for the other items that are charged to another cost center. That's another option if you want to still lock down that workflow to only one cost center.
Okay.
But it will just require that you have to do a purchase order per cost center. If that's not practical, then we can open up, or maybe in the workflow, allow that one user, not all of the users in the workflow, but allow that one user the ability to select multiple cost centers on the.
That's what I was thinking of. That's what I was more thinking of. If you have somebody like a Tammy Dalton that orders for maybe 5 or 4 customers, we can have her workflow set up like that, or Joe's, set up like that.
Right. We can do that, but and not. I don't want to get into this.
No.
Right. But with that said, there's one restriction to that process. If we open it up to that one person to select any cost center, then the routing process, I'll explain that a little bit for you later on. We don't have to do it in this video, but it opens up where only it can go through one approver for approval. It can't go through all those 4 different manager cost center for approval.
That's what I thought.
Okay, so we'll get.
Rick, we have another question though.
Sure.
Because in our business model, this can occur. For instance, like when we pay for this microwave. Sometimes maybe the cost needs to be split. It's one item, but it's being paid for by 2 programs or 3 programs. So how would we handle that?
Okay. When you have to, we do that through what we call distribution codes. So you see this column here that says distribution code. Well, if this computer is going to be paid by two different cost centers, or 5 different programs, or 3 different locations, whatever combination accounts, then what you can do is you can provide distribution codes for that location, for that workflow. And this distribution code, whatever you have them, whatever is allowed for them, they can go ahead and select that distribution code, and then once they select that distribution code, because it's defined in MIP as this cost center, these 3 cost centers at these percentage, then it's going to take the 599 and allocate it that way. But if you need to change the percentage, you can go and change the percentage here without it affecting the distribution code original allocation. But in order for us to allocate costs to multiple programs or cost centers or locations, we have to use a distribution code, and that distribution code needs to be able to, we can restrict what workflow can use a distribution code, but that distribution has to exist. If you cannot identify it with a distribution code, then the only other way to do it is to break out the cost in multiple lines. We will still print one line, but for example, let me delete this here again. And yeah, because you could see all of the different allocation that's coming from the distribution code, right? But let's say, for example, we just need to do it on the purchase order without using a distribution code. Then you'll come in here and put in, well, of that cost, 250 will go to this cost center, and then do another one, the same amount of 250 going to another location or whatever it may be. Okay?
Okay.
So you accomplish it by you accomplish it by a distribution code, or if you cannot define it with a distribution code, then they have to split out the expense. Okay. When we print the purchase order, we're going to still print one line as long as the item number and description is the same. We're going to print one line for the total 500 amount. Okay?
Okay. We do that now on the accounting side. We have distribution codes we use.
And you can, just so you know, if you do it on the accounting side, what you can do, right, you can have them put it in. Let's say you could put in the item at 500, right, and not allocate it yet. And then when it gets up to accounting, then we have a function here that says global update. I believe it's this one here. Okay, no, it's not. I thought we had it, but maybe not.
But there's a function where, let's say, when it gets to accounting, the business office here, we can.
Yeah, if you want to, right, if you want to allocate this here to different cost center using the distribution code, then before you transfer it to MIP, you can go ahead and change it and select your distribution code, and at that point, it's going to apply the allocation for you. So it can go from the requester with it not being allocated all the way through the approval process, and when accounting gets it, accounting can allocate it at that point before transferring to MIP.
I would like for you all, let me just make a comment, but for me, if let's say that's going to happen and it's maybe a unique situation, I would like to use maybe that user-defined box for something like that. You all tell me 33, you know what I'm saying, what you want to do, because it may be a unique situation.
Well, a perfect example is when we order appointment cards for all the clinics. So then you've got Nikki, Neil, and Jamie, and all the seven.
Yeah, but we can, what he's saying, we can distribute it. But what I'm saying is, for us in accounting, like if you all don't want to have to go in and type all that stuff, if you put in the additional information box 20%, 50%, you see what I'm saying, then we'll know. Or either you can choose to do it.
That's what we can do on the, just write it on the box.
Okay.
And another thing too is you can have a distribution code set up for all the possible cost centers, and then have one of the cost centers at 100%. So when you use that, when you use it split by cost center, let's say the distribution code says split by cost center, well, the one cost center would get 100%, but then it's up to you in accounting or whoever to say, okay, well, I really want it to split 10% here, 30% over here. So you're actually, the only benefit here is that you're putting in all the different possible cost centers, so that way later on it gives you the ability to say, okay, this particular cost center will pay 10%, 5%, and 3%. So it makes it more dynamic rather than static from the distribution code.
Okay.
Okay? And for the information that we talked about, those could also be a special reason justification. Maybe they can put that in there. Well, can we split this cost between 2 or 3 different cost centers, and here's the percentage.
Okay.
Okay. So that's how we handle distributions or allocating costs. But if it's going to one program location or cost center, it's going to automatically default for you based on your workflow. Okay. So we come in here, we enter the price. Now, whenever you enter in the line item, it's going to copy the description first from your document description. But just remember, you have to change that. Let's say laser paper. Okay. And then if you want more lines, you click on the plus button here, and that's going to give you a second. And then you can probably put in whatever else you're going to order, pens, and then the cost. Right? Now notice it'll copy the information from the top to the bottom. And this general ledger account, again, you can go ahead and we're going to limit this so you don't have all these selections, but just the ones that you're used to. You'll go ahead and select those accounts.
It don't look like
614.
614. Okay. Yeah. Right.
And now if I click on the third line, let's say I need the third line, it's going to copy the GL from the previous line. So just remember, you can change it if it's different. But once you select it on the first line, it's going to copy onto the second and third line and so forth for you automatically. And then you can come in here and put clips or whatever it may be that you're going to order. So this is a typical purchase order that shows the document information, just a general description, office supplies, and then the line items of what you're ordering at the bottom. Okay. Now again, the web application, the form is similar, but the way that you add, delete, and so on is a little bit different. And again, I'll point that out in the video for you. There's an add button here in the user GUI interface. In the web application, they do have an add, but it's not in the form of an icon, it's in the form of a link. So it's an add, edit, and delete, and so forth. Same functionality, but slightly different. Okay? But it will allow you to perform this specific task of creating the request, entering what you need, and then submit it for approval. Now, if this particular purchase order requires an attachment in the form of a quote or a bid or a contract or whatever it may be, you will have a paperclip icon here that allows you to click on and attach any type of additional documentation. If it's a travel and you have receipts to get reimbursed, you go ahead and attach those receipts. If it's a contract, you're going to hire someone for 6 months and it's a 6-month contract, you can go ahead and attach that Word or PDF document. Okay? If it's a bid and it requires you to have 3 bids from 3 different vendors because it's a high-ticket item, then you can go ahead and attach those electronic documents to it. Okay? By clicking on the attachment, it will bring up this dialog box. We're still working with MBT on this, okay? On this error message. But it will bring up a dialog box.
So does the attachment work?
Yeah, it works. It works, but they have to just update a file on the server, and that's
Okay.
where. But it will work. Other people are using it, and it's fine. It's just something on the server that we have to correct. But it does.
Okay.
It will work July 1st when you get into the system to use it. That attachment will work for you. Okay.
And you all, somebody asked about invoice. So let's say in that case where you maybe already have invoice, you could attach the invoice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you already have made the purchase, which we're trying to avoid, but if you still have some that are coming through the system that you already purchased and you're trying to put in the invoice to pay, then you'll come in here and put in your PO. Your PO is to that vendor for that amount, and then you'll attach the invoice to it, so that way AP will have that information readily available. Okay. Now, any questions on the data entry side? Any questions on the type of information we put in here, apart from the allocations and so forth? Are there any other questions, like maybe there are certain documents that you do and you're not sure how this will fit into this data entry form? Feel free to ask the question now.
Rick, there's a question. Where was Amy's question?
Can they use this for petty cash? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the question was, can this be used for petty cash? And
So that's a cash disbursement?
yes, petty cash.
Okay. Give me an example of what they're using it at. You know, do they put in a request now for petty cash to replenish it?
Yeah, for replenishment. So let's say you've got a $400 petty cash fund, and you spent $300. So you know you get.
You want to replenish it back to 400.
Pardon?
You want to replenish it back.
Go ahead.
Normally when we do that, we're providing several different receipts.
That's right.
Maybe one
That's right. Yeah.
from,
You're going to put it all down at the bottom.
but what about in the description? So just the description would be petty cash?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
Right, and then for accounting, when accounting get the request, we'll talk about this, you know, to be able to transfer it to MIP, not as an invoice, but as a cash disbursement.
Mhm.
Or would it be on the petty cash custodian's name?
That's gonna you're gonna put that you're gonna be the vendor.
Yeah, we know.
In the
I'm
petty
just
cash.
thinking who it would pull to write the name on the check.
You're gonna be the vendor.
Okay.
So how will you distribute the petty cash?
People already have petty cash funds.
No, he's saying
But
when they
it's
get
spend it on different things.
In the bottom down there.
right. They'll break it down just like they would a regular list.
Yeah.
I spend it on office supplies, stamps, lunch, whatever.
Yeah.
Wait, lunch?
Yeah.
You better clarify that.
Yeah, it is.
And so we would just attach our
I'm
reconciliation
thinking,
form, the ones that.
right, I'm thinking you could scan the reconciliation form and lay the receipts on something and scan it and attach it, you know.
Okay, and also, remember we talked about budget, it's checking the budget for you. So there's a little sack right here, money sack icon here, and that will allow you to see the budget and whether or not you have funds available. Even though you don't select this and you don't really care about the budget at this point, the software is going to still check it to see if you have funds available. But what this is showing you is based on the account you selected, the location, program, and cost center, it's going to show what you've budgeted, what you actually spent so far, what you have balanced, and what you're trying to purchase today. And it's going to tell you whether or not you're in the negative or not. Okay?
Yep.
And that's what we talked about real life budget checking, because this microid column here, this microid column tells you what purchase orders someone entered in the system right at this minute that that it's going to go apply against the budget. Because remember, anything that you enter in microid, the accounting system doesn't know about it yet, because it's going through an approval process. Somebody just entered it, and it hasn't hit your journal ledger yet. So that's why that micro column is kind of important, because that tells you what purchase orders you or any other staff member entered that is going against that particular cost center to see whether or not there's funds available. Okay? And for the approvers in the room, this is also important for you if you're trying to keep in line with your budget and so on, to make sure that whatever purchases you have are kind of in line with your budget line item. Okay? Now, if I have multiple accounts, so for example, if this was actually charged into another account, then when I check the budget, it's going to show me two lines, because now we have two different accounts. You have the 67900 and the 68600. Here we see that it's budget 5,000. You spent so far 951, and you have available right here. Okay, so it's a different combination of accounts used on the document and the purchase order. It's going to show you based on that approval on that budget. Okay. So any other questions as far as what type of information you need to be able to, because you're doing it manually now, you need to be able to see how that's going to be entered in this one, because again, it's one data entry form will encompass all of the different document types that you're doing right now for a purchase order. Any other questions on that before we move forward? Because this is pretty much it for the requesters that are entering the system. We need to be able to come in here. If you need to create a new document, we come in here and we save it. And I'll show you some other features pertaining to requesters, but this is the core of it. This is the core of you being able to come in here and create these documents and submit it for approval.
Okay. I think we're okay. Can you do the whatever to save or submit? I guess show between the two, because we talked about saving where you can still edit versus submitting.
That's right. So let me show you that part before I submit it for approval. So let's say I got this started, but I just want to save it and come back to it later on. Maybe I need to go to lunch, and I just want to come back and finish it off when I get back from lunch. So I'll go ahead and close this document. So I'll click on the X button here, and it's going to automatically give me a PO number. Okay? So it's going to give me the document number. Notice the status says 0, request a document. So that means anything that's at level 0 are at my level, and I did not submit those documents yet for approval.
So it automatically saved it when you close.
Right. It'll automatically save it when you close. Okay. Now you can always go back in there and void the document. If you let's say, for example, you decide not to go with the purchase, you can always go back and click on Edit, and we can go ahead and void this. There's a void option here that allows you to void the document. Okay. But let's say that's not what we want to do. We want to just come in here and finish off the order. So I'm just going to go ahead and maybe delete this line and just leave the 2 lines here. And I'm ready to submit for approval. Well, at this point, at the very top, there's an icon that looks like a little paper with a right green arrow. And that's your Submit for Approval button. Okay? And that's how we go ahead and send this purchase order for approval. So I'm going to click on this button here, and it's going to go ahead and tell me that there are no funds available, and we know that already. Click OK, and it's going to go ahead and submit for approval. Now, there becomes a time where if you do have specific budgets that you do not want people to go over, you can set later on where this particular workflow cannot submit for approval if there are no funds available. Right now, we have it relaxed where it will still warn you, but it will let it go through the approval process. Okay? So right now, it's saying that it's going to submit the document for approval, and we say yes, and it's going to go ahead and forward it on to my approval. The software automatically, because we already have predefined workflows and logged-in process set up in the software, so it's intelligent enough to know who you are, what workflow you belong to, and where it should go for approval. Okay? Now, at this point, for the approvers in the room, you will receive an email notification from the system saying that there's a document or purchase order waiting to be approved. You will know who it's coming from. You will know what they're ordering. You will basically have a copy of the purchase order in your email. You don't have to open up attachments unless there's attachments that are specified in the system, but you'll get a copy of the purchase order within the email in an HTML format, where you'll see the budget amount. If it's over budget, you'll see where they're expensing it to. You'll see all that information in your email. Now, Athena, do you want to open up? Well, I'm wondering if the email was set up. Let me just check here. Have you been getting emails from the system?
Do
you recall?
Pardon? I don't recall that I've received an email from the system. We can go and see if I have one.
Let me check the setup and see if they've entered a. Yeah, it looks like you should be getting the email. So do you mind just open up the email and see if you could look at that email, see if we get an email from them?
Okay.
That way it will help the approvers to understand what type of mail.
Okay, I'm waiting. It should be the last email.
Right, it should be the last email.
Yeah.
Look in the junk mail. Check the junk mail and see if.
Pardon?
Check the junk mail folder and see if you see anything in the junk mail.
Okay, let me see.
Anywhere over there.
You see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It says 1, yep. No, that's correct.
That's not it. Okay. Well, we'll probably have to. I'll make a note for us to test that out because you should get the email. It looks like it's set up, but we'll see. We'll test that out before you go live to make sure. But the email will come through on your Outlook for the approvers that in the room. The email will come through. You don't have to remember who it's from and so on. It's just to notify you that there's a document waiting to be approved. And then when we go back into the software, for the approvers, your job is a bit different, meaning that you're just going to review and approve the document. Do you guys have HTML approval, Athena?
HTML, which means you could do it on the phone or whatever.
Yes.
Right? We don't know. We didn't get that.
Okay.
Because we thought everybody had access to their laptops and stuff, so we didn't get that.
Okay. So for the approvers, we'll get into the detail for you later on, but you'll get an email saying that there's a document waiting to approve once the requester submits that order. Okay? Oh, now one thing to note, and this is for the requesters who are creating the purchase orders. One thing to note, and you may want to jot this down because it'll be handy later on. Whenever you submit something for approval, whenever you submit a purchase document for approval, you will not be able to edit the document. So if you come in here, notice here it shows document status 3 before it was 0, which is requested document. Because I submitted for approval, the software moved it up the chain, which is level 3. Okay? And it will not allow you.
Can the next level edit it?
Yes, the next level can edit it, and the next level can reject it. And I'll get into more of the detail of that when we get into the approver side of what the approvers can and cannot do. Okay?
Thanks.
But as a requester, when I submit something for approval, I can no longer edit the document. So if I try to come in here and maybe change a quantity, change a price, and I come in here and try to click on edit, it's going to tell me, hey, can't do it. However,
so Rick, are you going to get the approver piece?
Yeah, we'll get into approver piece, but I just want to finish one thing for the requesters, and we'll get into the approver piece. Okay? The one thing for the requester is that you can get the document back from level 3 back to your level by using the recall button. So the recall button, well, if you submit it for approval and the approver did not approve it yet, and that's the key thing, because if they approve it, the recall will not work. The recall will only work if you submit it for approval, but no one has approved it yet.
Okay.
Okay? So any questions there for the requesters? No?
We're good.
We're good.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and we're going to talk about the receiving. Now, Athena, you wanted staff to go in there and receive against what they ordered. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I wanted receiving because, you know, like I said, we have the sites, and when it comes to Sandra, you know, we don't want to pay for things that hadn't been received. So I do want staff to receive their items.
Okay. So for the requesters who submit a purchase order and you receive the goods or the service, and it's completed, you want to utilize the menu option that says receiving. Okay? So after you create a document, the only other thing that you have to manage in the system is to go back in here and receive, because if you do not receive, then accounting will not be notified that you received the goods or services to pay for those items. Okay? So it's important that when you submit your document, now you can go right away. It's open for receiving, so you can go in here and click on the receiving. It's going to show you your document. You open up to the document, and at this point, you can either check this option here to say receive all, or you can go into the line item and say, yes, I did receive this item, and I did receive the item, and it's going to automatically default your dates and the receive by for you. All this is saying is that it's confirming that whatever you ordered, you did receive it, so it will clear AP to go ahead and pay for this particular invoice once it comes in. Okay? So again, we go, let me close this out. That completes the receiving process. Okay? So the receiving is a separate icon and it says receiving, and you go in there and receive against your items. Okay?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you there?
Hold on for Renee.
Sorry, you had a question? No questions?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. Now let's switch gears now to the approvers. Okay? The approvers is more of a review process. They don't have any data entry work to do or anything like that. All they're doing in the system is waiting for that notification via email. Once they get an email notification, now you don't have to, if you know that you're getting emails, every time somebody submits a document for approval, you're going to get email. So it's up to you if you're getting, emails every minute or every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes or every hour, you can wait till noon to go in there and approve. So you don't have to remember there's 5 people send you notifications. You just have to know that, okay, well, I'm going to go in at noon or I'm going to go in at 11 o'clock and check and see what I have to approve and approve them. Okay? But the email is just a reminder, hey, I submit something to you. Please approve it. Now, as an approver, same thing. When you log into the application, you're going to use your email address and password or your first and last name as your user ID and your password. The same is true. Your password is your last name in all lowercase, and you have to change that when you first use the system. Okay? So just remember that. Now, when you log into the application, you will have, again, purchase order menu, and the only option for you will be to approve document. Now, as an approver, you may also create a purchase order. So what you learn in the requester session is basically how to create a purchase order and submit it for approval, because you as a manager or director may also need to enter purchase orders in the system. Okay? So that part, the first part I showed you, is basically how you'll go in and create a document, a purchase order, and submit it for approval. But if you're approving for other staff member, you're going to use the approved document. And the approved document, let me log in as Athena now.
I changed my password. So you have
that's okay. That's okay. I'll use a different password here.
Okay.
Okay. So for Athena being the approver for Sandra, she'll get an email notification. She'll log into the application, and they'll have a link here that's a menu option that says Approved Documents. So if you're an approver, you're looking out for that Approved Documents. Okay? And that Approved Document, you do not go to My Documents. My Documents are strictly for when you create purchase orders in the system and submit it for approval. But if you're an approver, you have to navigate to the Approved Documents. So that's very important, because you do not want to mix the two. You do not want to log into the system and navigate to My Documents to find find documents that are awaiting approval. Okay?
So when you get the notice that somebody has sent an invoice to you in your email, you can't approve it from the email. You actually have to log on to the system, right?
That is correct. Now, later on, Athena will decide whether or not she wants to add that ability, but right now it's not. You cannot approve it directly from the email. Later on, that might be a possibility, but right now, let's say you get 2 or 3 notifications via email, and then when you log in, you're going to see those 3 documents waiting to be approved.
Okay.
Okay. So when we go to Approved Documents, it's going to show me a list of all documents waiting to be approved. Okay? Now, one thing to note, as an approver, if you have, let's say, a planned time off, or you're going to be out for a couple of days, you do not want to have those documents stay in your queue, because it's not going to go anywhere until you approve it. So if you don't want to have anything bottlenecked and staying there until you get back from vacation or extended leave, you want to use the approval substitution. Now, I think we're not putting an alternate approval for everyone, right? They need to do a substitute. Is that correct?
When we submitted the workflows, we submitted substitutes for most everyone.
Okay, so they don't need to do it. They don't need to do a substitute then, right? That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, if you loaded the substitutes in with our workflow,
What is the difference?
yeah.
The difference is an alternate approver is permanently in there, so they know that you're out for a couple of weeks, so they're going to step in and go ahead and approve those documents. Whereas if we don't have an alternate set up, then if I'm leaving for 2 weeks, I have to go into the system and tell the system I'm leaving for 2 weeks. Here's my substitute, and it gives that person the ability to approve for me only for that period of time, that 2-week period of time, and then afterwards it's going to take them out and put me back in. So a substitute is just
an alternate. Are both people getting emails about those?
no alternate. Only the general or the main approval will receive emails, but the alternate will know they're an alternate, and they'll just have to go into the system if that person is out and approve.
So let's say that they're an approver for one program, but they're an alternate for another program. Are they going to see both those combined together, or are they going to be separate?
Yes, they'll see it, but they'll see it in a different group. So they'll see in their approval list. Let's say if I'm the CFO, I'll see my list of documents on the CFO, but maybe I'm an alternate for department director. Then I'll see another group of documents on the department director, but I won't touch those. I'll just touch the one that I'm in the CFO approver list.
Okay.
So this list will kind of group them together, but you'll just know that you don't touch this one until you know that person is out.
There's a question.
Yeah, how do we tell the system that I'm out for 2 weeks? And I need the second approved response.
I'm sorry, repeat the question one more time?
Do this,
Tell the system that the primary approver is out and that the secondary takes over.
Are you referring to a substitute or an alternate?
Yeah, it's a substitute, yeah.
Okay, if you do not have an alternate, right, and you want to use a substitute, then there's an option here in the maintenance tab that allows me as an approver to go into the system and say, well, I am an approver at this level. I need to be able to do a substitute. Here's my substitute when I'm leaving and when I'm returning. So a substitute only gives that person that period of time to approve, and after that period of time is completed, they're no longer able to go in and approve for me.
So Rick, let's say, okay, I think, like I said, for each workflow, I asked for substitute, or as you're calling it, alternate approvers. That's set up in the system. But let's say I'm going to leave and my regular alternate is going to be out of the office. I still can go in and just do this, right, and say, I want a person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you do this, will the emails then go to the substitute instead of the primary?
Yes, the emails will go to the substitute. And if the substitute did not get let's say 10 documents went to the substitute and they only had time to approve 5 of them and the 5 remaining, when you get back and they haven't, let's say they still didn't approve the 5 will return to you. Okay?
Will we also be able to see what was approved in our absence?
Yes, that's a great question. As an approver, we have 2 document lists. We have the approve document, and this will tell us what we need to approve, what's waiting our attention to approve. And then we have the document search. And this document search is basically give us a list of all purchase orders that went through the system from day 1. So if you were looking for a period of time, you'll filter for a date and see what documents went through the approval process on this specific date. Okay. You'll also use the document search to know what's coming through the pipelines as well. So maybe you wanted to see, so the document search to approvers is similar to the My Document list for the employees or the staff. The only difference is the My Document list here gives the login user only visibility to their documents only. But for the approver, it gives them the availability of all documents within their approving department. All users, everything. So if I'm looking up and see, okay, well, let me see what all we purchased from Quill for a period of time, from who purchased it, what they purchased, and so on, I can pull that up to document search, or I can pull that up to reports, because it gives me visibility of all documents that are created in my department. Okay? And if I needed to see, let's say, the other thing too, the benefit of it as well, maybe you wanted to look back a year from now or 6 months from now and see what all purchase item, what we purchased for this particular project. So I can filter for, see what items we purchased for that project, for that location, for the cost center. And that,
Rick, there was another question. Where was it? Did it pop up?
It popped up. It was a message from Amy.
Somebody typed in a message on the control panel. Can you expand that to see the question?
There's a question that was typed in.
okay, let me see here. Does original approver receive emails while substitute is active? No. That the question is, if I'm an original approver and I have Athena be my substitute, well, Athena will no longer receive emails. Athena my substitute. So Athena will receive the emails, but I, as a general approver, will no longer until the system switches me back as the regular approver. Does that make sense, or do I need to repeat that? And one thing also to note, if you returned early from your leave, there's an early return feature. So you can go back in there, and let's say you want to start approving now because you returned 2 days before and so on, there's an early return option that allows you to, maybe you didn't take the full 2 weeks, you only took a week and a half or a week, you can tell the system you're back early, and then it'll take out the substitute and put you back in as a regular approver. So whoever is the regular approver at that point will receive the emails, and the substitute, of course, will be out of the system, so they're not going to receive any more emails. Okay? You guys have some great questions. You're working me today, huh? Okay, so approvers now, you have, we talked about the substitute, we talked about the document, let's say the document, the difference between the document search and the approved document. Okay?
Rick, I just saw something I wanted to ask about that was on the other screen. It said something like post messages. What was that?
Okay, the post message is really for, let's say, if we give access to this post message. I'm not sure this is available on the web version. This is only available on the Windows version. So if you wanted to post a message and globally send out a message saying, you know, I'll be out for a 2-week period from this date to that date and so forth, what post message does, or maybe there's a staff meeting at 6 o'clock tomorrow. When you post that message, anyone who logs in, the software has a home page. Anyone who logs in, there's a home page, and whatever message you post will show up here in the message board. Sometimes we also upload messages to customers and say, hey, there's a new version available. That information will show up on that box.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back now to approved document. As an approver, you receive the email, and you're ready to go in there and approve. You can log into the application, select the document, and open it. Now, again, Athena, if later on, if you guys want to add that HTML ability, then if the approvers receive it via the phone, tablet, or PC, they can approve it right from the device without having to log in. But that's up to you later on if you think you need that function, okay?
Are they able to see the documents?
Yeah, they'll be able to see the documents and any attachments with the document as well. As long as the phone device can open up a PDF or anything like that, then they'll be able to see it, and from there be able to approve it.
Okay.
But I will say get accustomed to the system first. You know, get accustomed first before you add any other function like that. Okay.
Okay.
Because the only problem with the HTML approval is that you cannot make changes. You can either see what's on the email, you'll see whether or not it has funds available, and all you can do is approve or reject. You cannot make changes. In order to make changes, you would have to log into the application to make changes.
Okay.
So if you're an approver that really don't make any changes, just like to see what's being ordered and approve it, then that HTML is more for higher management, and you know, to be able to quickly approve something. Okay. Now, as an approver, you will see the document exactly how the person submitted the purchase order. You'll be able to see it, review it, and if you think that they changed or the expense information is wrong, you can go ahead and correct it. So maybe they selected the wrong GL. I can go ahead here and correct the GL. Okay? I can make those corrections. I also have the ability to ask questions before I approve it. So I can click on this email icon here, and I can ask this question to that and pose it to that user and say, okay, well, why do we need this? Can we wait until next month or whatever? We can ask questions, wait for a response before we approve. Okay? Now, when you click on the email, all you're doing is just having the document sit there, waiting for more information from the user before you approve it. Maybe they forgot to add an attachment or get quotes or whatever. You can go ahead and email them and say, hey, you forgot to do this. Okay? Now, if you need to send it back to the employee, let's say the employee called you up and say, hey, I need this document because I forgot to add XYZ to it. So you can send a document to them by clicking on the icon here that says, looks like the same paper with an arrow, but it's pointed to the left. It says reroute. So you're going to actually send this document back to the employee, and you can give a reason. And the reason is that maybe you requested it, or you're sending it back to them because they constantly keep on making mistakes on the account number or constantly leaving out certain things, and you're going to send it back to them for corrections. Okay? So keep in mind that the two functionality here, the reroute is to send the document back, or the email is to just gather more information before you approve it. And the same is true for you know, higher management. If it goes to the manager, a director, or even the accountant can reroute it back. Maybe if they think that you have the wrong allocation, or you entered certain things wrong, or the invoice doesn't match what you proved as a purchase order, you may get the document back because it doesn't match with invoice or something like that. Okay? So that's the reroute feature. So the common things that you'll have to be aware of when you're approving is to, of course, make sure the expense, they coded it to the right expense, because that affects your budget, of course, right? You can check the budget if you want to, but the software will check it for you if you do not. So this little icon here shows you what you have available to spend. You can use the email to notify the employees, or you can click on the approve button if you want to go ahead and approve it and send it on. And that's pretty much it for the approvers. It's very simple. If the HTML is even more simpler, because all you do is just to review the email and approve. But for approvers who log into the application, all they need to do is log in, navigate to approved documents, see what all needs to be approved, open it up, review, and once they're happy, they click approve and move it on to the next step. Whenever you approve the document, it disappears from your list. So this list should always be empty unless there's certain things that you're waiting on from staff before you approve it. But more than likely, when you come in here, if you missed a couple of emails, even if the emails didn't come through, maybe your email system is down, you're still going to be able to see those documents waiting to be approved. So that's important. If your email system goes down, don't think that if you didn't receive the email notification that there are no documents waiting to be approved. When you log in, it will still show you. Okay?
Athena.
Yes.
How does this work with specialized medical supplies?
What do you mean? If you're ordering medical supplies, there's no
If
difference.
I'm ordering medical supplies, I don't have to go through this process, right? I'll just go through McKesson or whatever vendor I'm using?
No, you still need to do a PO.
Okay. All right.
Well, for the McKesson people, we do have a process, and we could probably get that going as quickly for you. Athena?
You mean like the punch? Like the punch
Yeah,
out?
the punch out, right. Yeah, so basically, a lot of McKesson users, they'll go to the McKesson website and pick those items off the shopping list and place the order there, correct?
Yes, I've only done it once. Yes, that's what I did.
Okay, well, we do have an integration with McKesson that allows you to shop on their website for the items, pick it from the list, and then when you punch out, it brings those items and populate the purchase order automatically, so you don't do it in two places.
And that it works like that for Quill too, correct?
Right. As long as Quill have the punch out, we don't. As long as Quill have the punch out, it works the same exact way. And if it's Staples and things like that, as long as they have the punch out feature, we do have some healthcare clinics and so on that are using it with McKesson. So that I know it's already been integrated with, but it's a set of process that you have to do with McKesson to get you guys on the punch-out process.
Okay.
But for now, as Athena said, you may have to do it in manually and enter in a purchase order of what you're purchasing, but eventually, when you get it integrated, you don't have to do that duplicate process.
So do I need to contact McKesson for us to be set up, or it needs to be a technical person?
No, all you have to do, because you're the account holder for McKesson, let them know that you've implemented a new purchasing software and you would like to set up a punch-out site. And I can help you with that. I can help you with what you need to ask them. And once you do that, they're probably gonna get you and myself involved. And we're going to kind of go through a quick meeting and see what all the party needs. But the software is already integrated with McKesson. There's no programming. There's no additional cost that will cost you to get that process implemented.
Okay.
Okay? And the same is true for Quill. Okay, so based on what I've showed you today, this is for the approvers. Are there any questions remaining for how we log in here, approve a document, what it is that we're looking for when we're approving a document before we approve it and send it on to the next step? No questions? Okay. Well, I think then we're pretty much completed the training today for both requesters and approvers. Now again, just remember that the web application that you're going to be starting to use is slightly different than what you see here today. But I will try to follow up with a video on that and how to create a request, how to approve a request with using the web application once I get your URL from MPT, and then I'll post that video for you. The video that we have here today, I'll also post that and send that over to you as well, Tina, okay?
Okay.
Because even if you may have some people that use a full-blown app and they will still need this video on how to create and approve if they're using the full-blown app.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
And any last-minute questions before we end for your team? No? Okay. So we'll go ahead and end now, and I'll go ahead and forward this to you. Recording. I probably will also still need, I'm not sure what Maria scheduled out for you this week, but I'll probably need just one last, maybe an hour with you just so we can review the rest of the workflow.
We have training, Rick, we have training on September 30th, I believe not September, Lord, June 30th. June 30th, and I think it's at 2:30, and so maybe after that 2:30 training finishes, if for our accounting, for business office, maybe we can do something then. Or
yeah, okay. That's fine. I just want to review everything before we go live on that July 1st. I'm going to test today your attachment to make sure that's cleared up. I'm going to also probably need to get with you with that user-defined field.
And I guess that email, whatever that error.
Yeah, that one should be cleared up today, and then all of your workflow should be uploaded today as well. I need to also get you all the user guide so you can give it to your staff as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you guys, and have a nice day.
Have a good one. Okay. Bye-bye.